In our headlines on this Tuesday, September 9th, here in South Korea. A chartered flight is scheduled to bring home the South Korean workers detained by U.S. federal agents, and Foreign Minister Jong-un is in the U.S. to ensure a constructive resolution to the recent event. And President Lee Jae-myung calls for bold measures to stem inflation, stressing that stabilizing grocery prices is essential for people's livelihoods and the broader economy. Meanwhile, across the border, North Korea reportedly successfully conducts its final test of a new solid fuel engine that paves the path for the regime to test its newest intercontinental ballistic missile. We start with the latest regarding the fate of the South Korean workers detained by U.S. federal agents last week. The government here is seeking a swift return of these workers on a chartered flight within this week. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Around 300 South Koreans detained in the United States are expected to board a chartered flight home within the next day. A foreign ministry official told reporters on Tuesday that a chartered plane is being arranged to bring back Korean nationals from Georgia after they were arrested en masse last Thursday at a Hyundai LG battery plant. The government is aiming for a departure on Wednesday local time and is currently coordinating the details with business officials and the airline involved. According to sources in the aviation sector, a Korean Air aircraft is expected to depart Atlanta late in the afternoon and arrive at Korea's Incheon Airport late on Thursday Korea time. The released Koreans will first be transported from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center in southern Georgia and travel some 428 kilometers to catch their charter flight. After a weekend of negotiations, Seoul said Monday it secured the early release and return of detainees through their voluntary departure. To ensure their smooth release, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun arrived in Washington, D.C. on Monday local time with a rapid response team from Seoul. Cho will likely meet with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and other senior Trump administration officials on Tuesday. He's expected to press Washington to ensure that the returning workers will not face penalties such as bans on re-entry to the US. The minister has also emphasized he will address broader visa issues affecting Korean firms investing in America. This could include creating a new professional visa category for Korean nationals, so companies can dispatch essential staff to the US more smoothly. Cho is also expected to stress that Korean firms have already made large-scale investments in the US and that future projects depend on stable conditions. The raid last week by US immigration authorities took place at a factory that's part of Hyundai's $12.6 billion investment in Georgia, known to be the largest economic development project in the state's history. President Lee Jae-myung at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday also pushed for a systematic solution.
한미 양국의 동반 발전을 위한 우리 국민과 기업의 활동에 부당한 침해가 가해지는 일이 다시는 재발하지 않기를 바랍니다. 우리 정부는 유사한 사례가 반복되지 않도록 미국과의 긴밀한 협의를 통해 합리적 제도 개선을 신속하게 추진해 나가겠습니다.
In light of the recent arrests, Korean firms have raised concerns over their future business in America, while public sentiment has also been unsettled. A survey by Realmeter conducted this week found 6 in 10 Koreans find the mass arrests at the US plant disappointing and excessive.
Time is of the essence. How quickly and effectively this crisis is resolved between the two allied nations could directly influence Korean public sentiment, not to mention the future of Korean investments in the United States. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung has called for bold measures to stem inflation. Presiding over a cabinet meeting earlier on this Tuesday, he stressed the importance of stabilizing grocery prices for people's livelihoods and the broader economy. Do take a listen.
복잡한 유통 구조 등 여러 요인 때문에 우리의 식료품 물가는 OECD 평균보다 무려 50% 가까이 높다고 합니다. 같은 고물가라도 그 충격은 취약계층에게 더 클 수밖에 없고 이는 양극화와 불평등을 심화시키게 됩니다. 경제 전체의 활력도 당연히 저하됩니다.
In response, related ministers outlined potential measures such as offering discounts on popular items ahead of next month's Chuseok holiday and streamlining fruit and vegetable distribution systems. In his first National Assembly address as the leader of the Democratic Party, Chung Chang-le declared that rooting out insurrection is not political retaliation, but rather a defining issue of the times. He urged the opposition People Power Party to apologize to the nation for the martial law declaration and to sever all ties with insurrectionary forces. Chung also reaffirmed his party's intention to pursue 3 key reforms targeting the judiciary, prosecution and media, while pledging the DP's full support of the Lee Jae-myung administration's growth-centered economic policies. In their latest monthly assessment of the South Korean economy, analysts at a state-run think tank believe the slowdown is showing signs, subtle signs that is, of improvement. Our correspondent Park Jun-han covers their thoughts and more.
South Korea's economy is experiencing a slight easing of its slowdown, primarily driven by consumer spending, despite persistent weaknesses in construction investment and prevalent global trade risks. This is according to the monthly report released Tuesday by the state-run think tank, the Korea Development Institute, analyzing the nation's economy. All industry production rose 1.9% in July from a year earlier. However, despite the increase, construction remained weak, and manufacturing capacity utilization stayed low, resulting in a 14.2% drop from the same period last year. Industrial production in July, which includes mining and manufacturing, rose 5% year-on-year. Notably, semiconductor output jumped 20.5%, while motor vehicles and electronic parts also posted gains from a year earlier. Exports to the U.S. in August underperformed as they declined by 8.1% year-on-year. Despite strong semiconductor shipments, exports were dragged down by motor vehicles and parts and steel, which are subject to high tariffs.
Export fluctuations depend on whether companies choose to raise prices to offset tariffs. But strategies have not yet been finalized, and in sectors like automobiles, tariffs have been agreed to be lowered but are not yet in effect. So, considerable uncertainty still remains.
In the meantime, the KDI pointed to signs of improved stability in the credit market and domestic consumption. Consumer sentiment, which is considered optimistic if it's over 100, remained strong at 111.4 for August, supported by falling market interest rates and the government stimulus, including a second round of supplementary budget and distribution of livelihood recovery consumption coupons. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
North Korea has reportedly successfully conducted its final test of a new solid-fuel engine that effectively paves the path for the regime to test its newest intercontinental ballistic missile. Our Kim Do-yeon has details.
North Korea, with leader Kim Jong-un's oversight, has conducted the final ground test for a new high-thrust solid-fuel engine for its Hwasong-20 ICBM. That's according to the North Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday. The report claimed the test was successful and quoted Kim as saying it heralds a momentous change for his nuclear forces. It also confirmed this was the 9th and final test in the engine's development, including details such as a maximum thrust of 1971 kilonewtons and that the carbon fiber makes the engine lighter and more efficient. The news also comes a week after Kim inspected the motor's development ahead of his trip to China. An official at Seoul's Unification Ministry noted that the specific details were carried by the international-facing KCNA, but not the domestic-facing Rodong Sinmun newspaper, suggesting the message is intended for an external audience. Analysts expect the new intercontinental ballistic missile to be unveiled soon.
I believe they will reveal the actual missile on the 80th Party Foundation anniversary and likely conduct a test launch before the year's end to mark the completion of the 5-year plan, and as a celebratory launch for next year's 9th Party Congress.
The test timing, just after leader Kim Jong-un's return from China, is seen by analysts as a key part of Pyongyang's strategic messaging. especially as the KCNA also reported that Kim visited the construction site of a major hospital in North Korea and has stressed that building provincial hospitals is a top priority, calling it a vital project to provide people outside Pyongyang with advanced medical services.
While maintaining close ties with China and Russia, we must see the context here is to emphasize that it is an independent nation, not subordinate to these great powers, through its own nuclear capabilities. Therefore, conducting an advanced weapons test like this right after the China visit, and also giving guidance on a hospital construction, is an intention to show he is a tireless leader, working hard for both military and civil affairs.
Analysts also said this could be a strategic move before Kim sets up a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. With the new ICBM reportedly capable of hitting American soil, it could be to elevate the regime's position prior to any talks with the U.S. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, Israel is urging residents to leave Gaza City, signaling a major escalation of its ground offensive following its earlier targeting of high-rise buildings there. Our Park Hyo-bin has the latest.
Israel's army on Tuesday morning issued its first order for the full evacuation of Gaza City ahead of an expanded ground operation in the north. Israeli defense minister said 30 towers had been torn down so far, accusing Hamas of turning them into hubs of military activity. This comes after Israel leveled another high-rise in Gaza on Monday, part of its push to seize control of the city. Gaza's health ministry said 65 people have been killed and more than 300 wounded by Israeli fire over the past 24 hours. The Israeli military has been targeting prominent high-rise buildings for 4 consecutive days, saying Hamas installed surveillance infrastructure inside them. Israel and the U.S. are both pressing Hamas to release the hostages and agreed to a new ceasefire plan. The so-called Last Warning Initiative, unveiled by Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, outlines a negotiated end to the war with Israeli troops pulling out of Gaza once the hostages are freed and a ceasefire takes hold. Speaking in Hungary on Sunday, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar confirmed Israel had accepted the U.S. proposal.
President Trump said it clearly yesterday. Israel said yes to his proposal. We are ready to accept a full deal that would end the war based on the cabinet decision.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu doubled down, demanding Hamas release all captives.
The war is also continuing in the Gaza Strip, where we will destroy Hamas, as we promised, and bring back our hostages, all of our hostages.
U.S. President Donald Trump also pressed Hamas, calling the situation a hell of a problem and urging the group to accept the deal.
I think we're going to have a deal on Gaza very soon. So they have hostages, but we have, let's say, 20 people, and we have about 38 bodies.
Trump also wrote on his Truth Social that everyone wants the hostages home and everyone wants this war to end. It is time for Hamas to accept. It remains unclear whether the ceasefire proposal will succeed. Netanyahu and Trump insist on hostage releases first, while Hamas demands a full ceasefire and the withdrawal of Israeli forces before freeing any captives. Park Hyo-bin, Arirang News.
And U.S. President Donald Trump has reiterated his remarks about deploying National Guard troops to Chicago to crack down on crime, but refrained from sharing a time frame. Remarks to this end have been relentless for about a month, and a new CBS News YouGov poll shows 6 out of 10 Americans oppose the idea of National Guard presence in their cities. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump's approval rating stood at 44%, up 2 percentage points from July. Back on the local front, Seoul is hosting an annual forum that seeks to share innovation strategies for future mobility, such as autonomous vehicles and flying taxis, all under an inclusive transport system. Our Moon Ji-young was there.
The future of transport and mobility is being shaped here in Seoul. The 3rd edition of the Global Mobility Conference opened on Tuesday, bringing together experts from around the world to discuss how to create more inclusive, resilient, safe, and accessible transport systems. This forum, co-hosted by the Korean government and the OECD International Transport Forum, aims to map out innovative solutions to redefine future on the move.
Mobility is almost a blood system of society and the economy, and we need to take good care of that system as we move forward. We need to take a global approach to regulating mobility, and in this sense, the leadership of the Republic of Korea is extremely important.
Looking into how we might travel in the future, automaker Hyundai Motor stressed the need to prepare for an era where mobility becomes an essential utility, much like electricity is today.
Transportation in the future will involve self-moving mobility devices centrally managed by the cloud. These devices will be interconnected, with cities serving as the infrastructure. We are developing them not merely as vehicles for transport, but as AI learning machines capable of continuously enhancing user value and improving device functionality.
The Korean Transport Ministry has highlighted the importance of bolstering policies to ensure mobility rights and inclusivity in the era of future mobility. The two-day conference also includes discussions on the commercialization of autonomous driving and urban air mobility, as well as addressing the mobility rights of disadvantaged groups. Global institutions saw today's conference as a meaningful opportunity to share innovation strategies for future mobility with the world and strengthen the foundation for global cooperation. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
On the entertainment front, K-pop Demon Hunters continues to make headlines both on screens and on music charts. Our Ian Jin revisits the global craze over this Netflix sensation.
K-pop Demon Hunters reached the top just 2 months after its release in June, and its phenomenon has posed the questions of how long and how far its success can go. It quickly became the most watched animated film on Netflix, and with more than 236 million views, has now become Netflix's most watched movie overall ever. Its main track, Golden, has topped both the UK and US pop charts. Now, this fever has carried over directly to Korea. At the National Museum of Korea, people are lining up early to buy souvenirs reminiscent of K-pop Demon Hunters, and real locations featured in the film are now tourist destinations for fans.
It's very beautiful. We heard a lot about it, very old, and it's from Korean, so yeah.
Government ministries have even joined in on the viral dance challenge based on the movie's choreography, showing that online enthusiasm remains high. The story is about embracing differences and finding peace within oneself and with others, which critics say may be a universal story, but resonates so widely largely due to the way the message was delivered. And the integration of distinctly Korean elements of K-pop and shamanism is also seen as a key contributor to the film's global appeal.
We tried to make the movie feel as Korean as possible, and one way to do that was to, in every scene and every design aspect, add in Korean elements.
What's notable is that K-pop has long faced skepticism for its global success as being just a passing trend. But now, K-pop fans in the US are showing a level of loyalty rivaling those in Korea. A survey released by Billboard showed that there is a growing base for strong K-pop fans, as more people listen to K-pop 7 days a week. With this, doubts surrounding the potential of Korean culture are finally starting to fade, leading to experts suggesting it is time to redefine the direction of the K-pop industry.
We need to recognize and share the universal values that K-pop holds with the world. It shouldn't be about just localizing or exporting management techniques.
Moreover, what's being called the KDH phenomenon, despite it being K-content technically produced abroad, now challenges Korea to truly tell its stories in a way that meets the heightened global standards. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. In Europe, the French Parliament has toppled Prime Minister François Bayrou at a confidence vote over a contentious budget proposal after just 9 months in office. On Monday, the National Assembly voted overwhelmingly to reject Bayrou's government with 364 votes against and 194 for. The Prime Minister's resignation is expected to be submitted to President Macron on Tuesday. Bayrou had called the confidence vote himself, surprising even his own allies, as he sought approval for an austerity package aimed at reducing France's national debt, which now stands at 114% of GDP. This included the elimination of public holidays and a freeze on government spending. However, opposition parties from both the far left and far right united against the plan, rejecting it outright. This marks the second government collapse under President Emmanuel Macron's second term, who now faces naming a fifth new prime minister in 5 years or calling fresh elections. Moving over to Nepal, where amid protests against corruption and a social media ban, at least 19 people have been killed in clashes with security forces. Following the blocking of social media platforms last week, thousands of demonstrators marched to the parliament in Kathmandu on Monday, declaring this is a protest by the new generation of Nepal. Security forces responded with tear gas, rubber bullets, and even live fire, leading to at least 19 deaths, 17 in Kathmandu and 2 in Itahari. Over 100 people were injured, including police officers. In the aftermath, the Home Minister resigned, citing moral responsibility. The government blocked 26 social media platforms last week, including Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and YouTube, stating that these platforms failed to comply with registration requirements. Authorities claim the decision was to combat the spread of hate speech, fake news, and criminal activities by users with fake identities. However, young protesters viewed this as a form of censorship amid widespread perceptions of government corruption and economic stagnation. 2 platforms have been reactivated after registering with the ministry. In Mexico, a freight train hit a double-decker bus, killing at least 10 people and injuring dozens more. The collision on Monday in an industrial area of Atlacomulco, northwest of Mexico City, happened when the bus attempted to cross the train tracks ahead of a moving train. No crossing gates or warning signals were present. The bus company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The local government said authorities are still working at the accident site and an investigation is underway. Finally, the Munich Motor Show kicked off on Monday. Europe's largest automotive expo, officially known as IAA Mobility 2025, is expected to attract over 500,000 visitors from more than 110 countries. This year's show features a record number of Chinese manufacturers, around 75 companies, challenging European brands. There's an emphasis on affordable electric vehicles, with BMW set to launch an electric SUV in early 2026. Mercedes' new electric GLC and Porsche's electric Cayenne were also in the spotlight. The motor show runs until September 14th. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Today, rain fell mainly in the south and Jeju Island. It will continue in the southern parts of the country until tomorrow morning. As for the amount of rainfall, more than 80 millimeters of heavy rain will be concentrated on Jeju Island, the south coast, and around Jirisang Mountain. About 5 to 60 millimeters of rain is forecast in other southern regions and 5 millimeters in Chungcheongnam-do province. With the rain, all of the heatwave warnings in the southern parts of the country have been lifted, and heatwave advisories remain only in some parts of Jeju Island. Today's daytime temperature were 1 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday in the southern parts of the country. Tomorrow morning will start cool at 20 degrees Celsius in Seoul, Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju, 16 degrees in Chuncheon. Highs will move up to 32 degrees in Seoul, 29 degrees in Busan and Jeju. Rain in Jeju Island will continue until Friday, and it will rain all over the country again on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.